Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of Womenstrual The Podcast. I am your host, Candice, and this is a safe space to discuss periods and the ebbs and flows of life. Today, we have an international guest, all the way from Thailand. She is a life coach, she is a podcast host, she is a lover girl, and she is the woman who creates all the posts that we all save for later. Emma Wilson.
Hi, I love that intro. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Likewise, how are you?
Good, thank you. We had a few tech issues, but we're here now. We're on the other
Yeah,
side and we're ready to
yeah,
dive in. How are you?
absolutely. Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. I'm really good. Had a great week. I feel like I'm feeling really good about this year. What about you?
Yeah, I also was just journaling. Sorry to sound very life coachy, but I do it. And I was journaling and I was like, oh my God, how is it the first month of the year already gone by? It feels like everyone put such high expectations on January. And obviously I did too. And it just went by in a flash, even though it is
Yeah,
the longest month. It was very, very
yeah,
quick for me.
yeah, for sure, for sure. But it's exciting, I think. Have you seen those posts that have got like a dot in January and it says you are here, and then it's got opportunity with all the rest of it? That's kind of how I feel whenever I get to an end of a month. I'm like, so much has happened in 1 month, but look at the prospective opportunities ahead. I never feel like, oh my gosh, it's gone so quick. But actually, it's exciting to just lean into all the different phases of every year for me.
Yeah, I agree. And I do feel like there is something special about January energy. It is a clean
Mhm.
slate. Sometimes I
Yeah.
think it's overhyped, the whole, new year, new me mentality, but there is
Mhm.
something really nice about it being a new book, the first chapter of the new book. So I love it.
Absolutely. And on the topic of chapters, let's get into your first chapter, your upbringing. Where did you grow up? What was your life like as a child? All the things.
Wow. Okay. So I am originally from the UK, even though now I'm living in the tropical jungle in Thailand in Koh Samui. But I'm originally from Manchester. I grew up as the eldest of four daughters. So very interesting already before I even go into details of that. And I actually grew up in a very close knit Jewish community. And I say that I'm not from a religious background at all. It was very secular. My parents were not religious. We didn't get brought up in with religion as a setting, but we did in a cultural and community context. And that had a very strong bearing on my life, which I'm sure we can dive into now. But we were a I don't know, middle class family, but actually my parents struggled a lot to keep up
Mhm.
with the community around in terms of, money. We were living in a very, very small house, all of us together in like one bathroom. And it was intense. It was very intense. Three teenage girls together, because my little sister is actually 12 years younger than me. So she came after, and the three of us were close together.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was very much a family where heightened emotions, but nothing was really spoken about, which I feel like so many millennials will relate to, that feeling of lots of emotions stirring around, but not actually any sort of ability to share or a safe
Right.
space to share. And that really links to the period thing, because I was thinking about this before we had our podcast, of my first experiences with menstruation and like the dialogue around it in my house and my family. And it was
Yeah.
taking me a while to really think about it, linking to
Mhm.
the fact that even though we were four young women growing up together, it wasn't spoken about. So lots to dive into there. But I would say that's like an overall summary of my childhood, where I'm from, and how I was, those early stages.
Yes. And have all of your sisters also dispersed across the globe to live other places, or are you the only one that kind of took the leap?
I'm the only one that lives abroad, but
Okay.
my two of my sisters are based in London, and one of my sisters lives in Manchester still.
Nice, nice, nice. And on the topic of periods, who started first? Was it you? Just even though it could have been your younger sister,
You,
based
you
on
know
age.
what is so interesting that you brought that up? Yes, in fact, I came on my period later than most, I would say, just because I remember I went to an all-girls school and I was like the only one out of my friends who hadn't started, and that feeling of
Yeah.
being behind and being left behind. And oh my God, and that links to so much, doesn't it, to my niche of turning 30 and feeling left behind in love life and all of the things. So I remember that feeling of comparison already when it came to coming on my period first. But
Yeah.
actually, my second sister, who is just under 2 years younger than me, she didn't come on her period until after my third sister came on. And I
Oh, wow.
remember that that was a taboo in the family, that we weren't allowed to tell her. Or there was some, I can't remember exactly, it's very blurred memory, but there was definitely something there where my mum was really struggling and uncomfortable with the fact that one of my sisters came on a period not in the right order, and they had a 3-year age gap, because I think
Yeah,
she
yeah.
started her period when she was about 16, which is very late. I started the first when I was I think 30, I think it was like the week before I turned 13, which again I think
Mhm.
these days is actually also seen
Yeah.
as quite late. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, I was the first.
How was that experience? Do you remember what happened?
It's actually funny. I came on my period for the first ever time the day that I got braces.
Wow. So much in one day.
Right. I remember going to the toilet in the morning and like pulling down my knickers, seeing that I'd come my period for the first time and being like, oh my God, is this a joke? I literally have become a teenager in one day. And it was just before my 13th birthday. And I remember,
Oh,
going to tell my mum, and it was like, then going straight to the orthodontist chair for a few hours to have these awful train tracks put in my
oh,
mouth. And then I remember walking into the classroom at school and being like to my best friends, like, I've got my period and I've got a brace. And it was all just very ridiculous.
that is actually one for the books. Like it's like a life comes at you fast. Life comes at you fast. Was it
Right.
painful when you started? Did you have much education ahead of time?
I don't remember, it's just so interesting to have these conversations, because I had an older cousin who was very, very close with. It was my mum's sister, and she has three
Mhm.
kids, and we got brought up. We were together every day after school and all weekends. We were a very, very close family. They were almost like brothers and sisters. And she was 2 years older than me. So I think all of my education really fed through from her.
Right.
And in a positive way, she was definitely
Yeah,
the
yeah.
first person who taught me about sex, and it was
Mhm.
very learning from her. I don't ever remember my mum sitting down and really teaching me about
Okay.
periods.
Yeah.
And maybe she did, and I just don't fully
No.
recall. But it
Mhm.
was definitely not something that was really taught before.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're not alone in that experience at all. And even in present day, I think there has been change across generations in that more conversations are being had about menstruation and what that looks like in a woman's body. But even now, teenagers that are starting their periods feel just as misinformed or uninformed about their periods as well. So I think that's a really interesting about how just cross generationally, in a lot of ways, we haven't massively moved on into, especially as this is something that happens in every woman's body to some degree. Like everybody's going to have this experience, but there's still not a lot of conversation about it, which is why I started this podcast to open that up to
Yeah.
learn about people's experiences, see what kind of conversations have been drip fed their lives, and kind of equip women to feel more empowered to have the conversations, even if they didn't have them with their parents, but actually to have them with their girls or to actually have them in their relationships. And on the topic of relationships, how was love based on your life work? How was love framed in your household? How did you see love expressed? What was the conversations in your friendship groups? Like, what was the kind of genesis of like your understanding of love?
Such a good question. I came from a family where love was very functional,
Mhm.
because my parents eventually ended up getting divorced when I was 21. So it was a little bit later, but their marriage was on the rocks for a very long time. And I don't have many memories of my parents being in love, or that feeling of, very much looking at them. You hear people who say, oh, my parents were such a good example of love, and
Yeah,
they're a perfect relationship, and I always had to live up to that. When I think about who my partner is, I have the opposite to that in a way. They didn't even particularly argue. It wasn't a very volatile household or anything. And actually, when they got divorced, it was very amicable, because it was just a situation where they had really fallen out of love. They'd been already together already for 25, 30 years, I think. by the
Yeah.
time they broke up. And yeah, love was never really modeled to me in a very healthy way. My parents were both very, for want of a better way to say it, emotionally unintelligent in the way that they were able to speak to each other, I think, about their relationship. And therefore, that obviously fed through to
Yeah.
us. And I think that I know we could speak about this in context of the timelines and being in your 30s and beyond, is that my mum met my dad when she was very young. She was 16, and it was straight out of, she left her parents' house straight into getting to go and live with him when they got married. And he was a little bit older, but she was very young and she had children young. My mum was 22 or 23 when she had me. It was
Mhm.
very, everything was happened and she wasn't educated in that way. So, in a way, even when we're talking about period health and menstruation, I don't think that she even would have been able to have the conversations just because she got married very young. And I think
Yeah.
the same with their relationship. It was all just very, this is what you do. And again,
Mhm.
linking back to what I said about the Jewish community, I think in any close-knit community, you just do the things that you're supposed to do
Yeah.
without questioning it. And I think that's
Quite formulaic.
definitely, yeah,
Yeah.
you just go through, jump through the hoops. And I definitely think that's what my parents did. And think that definitely influenced. It wasn't like I was modeled very healthy love from a very young age.
Yeah. That's again a not so distant experience for so many as well. I fortunately was modeled a really healthy
Mm.
love story in my house. My parents really visibly loved each other, and also, which was nice to see, was they liked each other. Like when they had the choice to spend time with each other, they would. So I think I've been really blessed to have that as an example. However, life shifts have meant that my choices haven't always reflected that, but
Well,
it's interesting that duality.
yeah, what I wanted to ask was how do you see that has affected you in your relationships, having that healthy love modeled?
Yeah, wow, here we go into the coaching. So
Can't help
I
it. I'm sorry.
I actually haven't massively explored this. And it's actually a question, not those exact words, but like a theme that I've been thinking about over the last year or so. Like, how are my love choices reflected in the love that I've seen? And why am I not making choices that reflect the love that I've seen? Like,
Mm,
is there like an avoidance here? Is there a almost like an ideal that like that type of love doesn't exist anymore, like I think because we've moved so far from how people were kind of in relationships, found love, met new people. In a digital age, it kind of feels a little bit, for me it feels a bit tense, in order to find that pure, respectful, enjoyable, fulfilling love in that kind of way. But it isn't actually something I've massively
mm.
explored, but I will, because this is a great question.
Yeah, and this is a lot of the work that I do with clients who are looking for a life partner and want to be in a
Yeah.
relationship is understanding that it's not just so simple. Exactly like you
Hmm.
said, somebody might look at you from the outside and be really presumptuous and say, but your parents are such a good example to you of love. It must be so easy for you to believe that true love exists. And in these stories and narratives that are actually subconscious and deep down, they can
Yeah.
come from all different nuance. For example, like you said, maybe in your mind it's almost a standard that you can never meet. So then that
Hmm.
story would play out exactly like
Hmm.
you said. Well, that doesn't even exist anymore. And that could be a belief that would be blocking you in some way. So we won't obviously go too deep into a coaching session on it, but I think it's just a really good example of how your early childhood experiences when it comes to love can really have such a significant impact on later relationships.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it kind of links to a quote that I saw on your Instagram, on your blog, that says, when we delegate our happiness outside of ourselves, we lose the power to change. I think that is really powerful. And it links back to your concept around emotional adulthood and emotional childhood.
Mm.
Um, when do you, for context, could you explain that concept and also share when you think you shifted gears from emotional childhood to emotional adulthood?
Of course. So this is a concept that I really love teaching about and exploring. Obviously, we know adulthood and we think that's obviously linked to times and timelines, age, but
Hmm.
emotional adulthood is nothing to do with age. It's nothing to do with how old you are, how mature you are. It's to do with how you respond to situations, how you're able to uh, take whatever's happening in your circumstance and not to jump to conclusions or respond very reactively. Viktor Frankl, so he wrote a book called The Man's Search for Meaning, and it's really taken from his concepts that he teaches. He was a Holocaust survivor in Auschwitz, and he has an incredible story and teaches that in between every stimulus and response, there's a space where you get to decide how to react, and that's something that he really lived by. And I think that it's something that I like to teach. I think that's what emotional adulthood is. It's the ability for things to be happening around you and for you to actually just pause for a moment. And that pause
Yeah.
doesn't even have to be visible to the external world. It might just be the pause in your mind and actually think, okay, how do I want to
Hmm.
respond? And I
Hmm.
think for many of us, we know we can probably think of our parents' generation or parents' generation who aren't in emotional adulthood and maybe, 70s, 80s plus. So it really is nothing to do with age. It's just that time in your life when you realize that only you have responsibility for yourself. It's that really strong self responsibility. Only
Hmm.
you have the power to change. And I love the saying, all paths lead from you. And I think
Yeah.
that this is very important in growing up and being able to have a good relationship with yourself and of course then a good relationship with others. And in terms of when, well, not to sound too cliche, but I think it was when I was around 29, 30, and I was going through my
Hey.
turning 30 crisis, and that's when I
Yeah.
discovered coaching and therapy and started just diving deeper into myself. And I've always been somebody who's self-aware and somebody who can have deep conversations and everything. But I think it was only around that specific time when I actually gave myself permission to go and have a look inside and to go and do that work. And it came from originally, I use the word crisis. It definitely came from a feeling of, oh my God, I'm turning 30 now. I'm feeling left
Hmm.
behind.
Yeah.
My life doesn't look the way I want it to look. And that's what led me into eventually obviously becoming a coach, but at first going to coaching originally
Yeah.
for career things. And I also went to a therapist during that time. And yeah, it was just opening Pandora's box from there.
Hmm. Yeah. I think we've all got a moment. Well, I say all because, as you mentioned, the emotional adulthood is not linked to time. But I think when you're prepared to do that inner work, we all do have that like, moment. I actually think mine came at 33. 30, no, 32. 32. When
Mm,
I had the thought of actually, is the life I'm living one that I really feel fulfilled by? Do I enjoy it? And is there any ways here that I can make some changes?
mm,
And I typically, when I'm making those type of decisions or having those type of thoughts, I kind of get into like an all or nothing mentality. So I literally just gave my life a 360. Like I didn't change one thing, I changed everything. Like, and as a result of changing everything about who I was, how I was perceived, the work I did, everything, like even my friendships started to shift as a result of that, which is, I think, in a lot of ways, is a byproduct of just having that inner dialogue around what do I want my life to look like, and then your life just does the Tetris pieces where
I love
everything
that.
just starts to move around. And as a result, I felt very I now feel really fulfilled by the life that I live. Um, and almost again, like this links back to like therapy work, like surprised that when I make my own decisions about the life I want, they actually work out well. And I think it's about that like self-trust, self value and
Mm.
understanding all those pieces of your life, and then deciding, because I always believe that like readiness is a decision as opposed to like a moment in time. Like I think you have to just decide and then you will be ready. Like there's very little you can do to prepare for what life is going to be like on the other side of the decision. You just have to make it. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I love the example of the Tetris pieces like moving around because I think obviously I'm not here to interview you, so maybe you'll come on my
No.
podcast and share your story so we can dive into it deeper. But what you just said is really very important, that all it takes is to make the decision to change something, it's like the foundation. I always use the analogy of you're building a house. And if you were to go and build a house from scratch, you wouldn't just build it on any foundation. You would go and you would check the land, you would do all of the real estate checks, you would clear it, you would
Yeah,
make sure the
yeah, yeah.
foundation was very strong. And that foundation was you saying, okay, I'm making a change. And then when you make that change and you're building that strong foundation, then you can build the rest of the house and it affects
Mm-mm.
everything because
It does.
what you said, your self-trust, your self-worth, how you decide to show up in the world, maybe it started as you were lacking meaning in career or there was something with your friendships. I don't know what the trigger was. But
Hmm.
once you go on that journey, once you open Pandora's box, there's no way that it can't spill over into all the different areas of
Yeah.
your life. And that's what I see with clients time and time again. They will come to me for one part of their life, they will do that work, and then it will spread to all the different parts of their life because
Hmm.
it's contagious, that confidence. It's not just going to stay in
Hmm.
one place. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I really love that.
for sure, for sure. And I think, again, linking back to your blog, the post around stuck in the waiting room of your own life, first of all, that is an exceptional title. Like, it is just a brilliant visual of what that can feel like. We all have been in a waiting room in some area, and we know how frustrating it is to sit there and just continue to wait and see our number like gradually get to the top of the list. Some of the things that you feel like this link to is uncertainty, not being able to trust your future self, and also waiting for someone to save you. How do you think women can get unstuck from that?
Wow. So, the waiting room that I think that happens a lot is in relation to love life. That I think
Hmm.
that's how I frame it. That doesn't mean it's always is about, it can be about any topic, but the work
Yeah.
I'm currently very much focused on at the moment is working with single women who have that feeling of, okay, I just need to wait for this relationship to come in. And then I
Hmm.
can do X, Y, and Z. And that can really show up in so many different ways. It can be,
Hmm.
well, I'm just going to stay in this apartment, even though I don't really like it here. I'm not going to move to actually the area that I want to live, or even if it's a different country or a different city or something, because I'll wait to see if I meet somebody. And the waiting room could also look like, oh, I won't buy any new furniture for the house because maybe I'll meet somebody soon and then we'll be putting our things together, so there's no point. Or it could
Hmm.
obviously be linked to career. Well, I should just stay in this stable job that I don't actually really like and bores me because it's just safer to be here, and maybe I'm going to meet someone in the next few years. It's that really
Yeah.
that feeling of just putting your life a bit on hold until something is about to happen.
Right.
And how to get out of that is to stop waiting. It sounds obviously just very easy advice, but I call it in my turning community, I call it turning the volume up on you. So that's really just doing things as if you are the main character. So that's,
Mm.
you know, okay, it's going to book that solo trip or that retreat, or
Yeah.
it's taking yourself out on some solo dates. It's buying
Yeah.
that thing that you've wanted to buy. It's starting that side project. And maybe it's a
Hmm.
side hustle. Maybe it's volunteering, hobbies, whatever it is. Just stop waiting for things to change and take this radical self responsibility and
Hmm.
turn the volume up on yourself. I
Yeah.
think
I like.
that one of the things about being in the waiting room that often happens is that I use the visual of a stereo, like an old school 80s stereo where you've got the volume things. And when the volume is turned really down on yourself because you're in this waiting space, the volume on everyone else and everything else turns really, really high up, and it
Yeah.
drowns out who you are. And
Yeah.
it's really hard to navigate that space because it's almost like so deafening. And that's when everyone around you is buying a house or being promoted,
Mm.
getting engaged, getting married, getting pregnant, all of those things. And you just feel like you're stuck waiting. And so that's why I say, once you just take that dial and just shift it right up for yourself, so the volume goes up, 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 there's no choice for that the volume has to go down from everyone else.
Yeah.
It can't be at
Yeah.
the same frequency. And that
Hmm.
is when everyone else becomes background noise because it doesn't matter what
Hmm.
everyone else is doing because you're living your own path. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter
Yeah.
what everyone's doing because the volume's so high up on you that you
Hmm.
don't give a shit. You're just
Okay.
like, I'm living my life. Okay,
Yeah.
great. One of my close friends got engaged again. I'm happy for her. Maybe it's difficult to navigate friendship, another topic, but I'm not going to be so distraught because I'm not just sitting around waiting for life to happen to me.
Yes, and I think that is so powerful and important. Um, in so many cases, in a lot of ways, I think women have been conditioned to wait for life to just happen. Like that, taking that agency feels like a move of like radical self-worth and radical self-actualization, and realizing that, you know what, I am in control of my life and I get to choose what I want to do, how I want to spend it. But it really does take extra confidence and coming out of your own comfort zone, which you say actually is not even comfortable. So I also wanted to read from your blog the quote around the comfort zone, which again I thought was like, it hit me right here. It hit me right here because I was like, had I read this 10 years ago, I would have been so like, oh my, like I need to do something right now. So you say your comfort zone isn't actually comfortable. Here's the thing that kills me. You're avoiding getting out of your comfort zone to take the next step. But where you are right now, that's not comfort either. Your current reality is so uncomfortable that it's causing burnout, keeping you in a job you hate, stopping you from living where you want to live, preventing you from booking that flight to have an experience that could bring you massive growth. You're so nervous about worst case scenario, but right now, this is your worst case scenario, being stuck. The only person who's going to unstick you is you. I was like, she better speak.
Amen, amen, amen.
That is
Did I
actually,
did I write that? I mean, it
you wrote
sounds
that.
amazing. I know, can't
You
believe it.
wrote that. And I think we kind of touched on it before with getting unstuck. But is there some key moments, especially obviously moving to Thailand, moving to another place in the world? What what are some of the things, or can you remember like a key moment where you thought, you know what, I've got to come out of my comfort zone, when you realize that actually this is the worst case scenario, like making a choice and taking a leap. There's so much endless opportunity that's on the other side of that choice.
For me, it's definitely been a career thing because I think that I have this obsession with quitting, quitting things. Well, I did when I was before I found coaching, but it was for me. I really followed a mainstream path because, like I said, that's what everyone did. Everyone that I knew who was got good grades at school went on to be a lawyer, doctor, accountant,
Hmm.
nothing else. That was like the three
Yeah.
things that you did. And I went
Hmm.
down the path of becoming a lawyer in London, and it just wasn't for me. And I was working in a big corporate office. I was getting the tube every day, and it just didn't feel. It felt like I was wearing fancy dress costume and just dressing up in
Hmm.
this suit to go to work, and I couldn't live like that anymore.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was so many moments in my life where I've just been in that position where I'm like, okay, I really want to quit, or I really want to do
Mm,
something different. And then I'm like, okay, my fears start to come up. My logical brain comes in and starts to say, Emma, don't do that. All of these things could happen, all of the fears. What if you're left with no career options? What if you don't actually find out what you want to do? I've never
mhm,
quit anything and I've had something lined up, maybe
mm,
once, and I've quit
mm,
many things. And it was
yeah.
just obviously all the fears come up. And I think the quote that you just read out is something I really live by of, well, where I am right now actually isn't the place that I want to be.
Mm,
And I'm scared to do this big thing and get out of my comfort
yeah.
zone. But
Yeah.
I always say that to people, you're not comfortable where you are now, because if you were, you wouldn't be even thinking about this decision. You wouldn't be
Right.
asking yourself if you want to quit. You wouldn't be coming out of the office every weekend crying in tears because, this isn't fulfilling you in any way, shape, or form. So, yeah, for
Mhm,
me, it was very much leaving law without any idea of what to do. I had never even gone down any other route that wasn't very academic. I was tunnel vision all the way. And then it was getting into a corporate sales role. I was working in sponsorship and events, and it was doing that for 3.5 years. And then being like, gosh, I really want to do something psychology based and going down that route. I originally did a psychology degree before I did law, and going back to that. And then it was, oh, I really want to start my own business.
yeah,
But
yeah.
who am I to even do that? Oh, I really want to start my Instagram account. Oh, I feel sick. Why would I even put a story out there? That makes me, I remember my first ever talking story to the camera, and I was like, oh, so cringe. Everyone's going to say. And it's just like lots of these mini moments over the last 15 years that have culminated in finding a career that's so fulfilling and so in line with what I actually want to do. So I just urge anybody who feels stuck and feels this this fear of being uncomfortable is ask yourself, are you really comfortable right now? Is it going
Mhm.
to feel more or less uncomfortable? And you know what? For some people, it might feel more uncomfortable to quit the
Right.
thing. And so I
Mhm.
think it's also, I wouldn't encourage anybody who to be such a risk taker like me, because looking back, probably financially speaking, wasn't the best idea to just keep quitting and not have anything lined up with no support from anyone else, just myself.
Yeah.
But it obviously worked out for me. I do think that there is some other side of that where you can maybe like put in more plans and be a bit more strategic and think about things more
Yeah.
in that way. But again, just going back to the concept of really asking yourself, how are you really feeling now? Is this life
Mhm.
working for you? Is this
Yeah.
really how you want it to be? And I have a reel actually that says something along the lines of every woman at some point in her 30s just comes to this realization that if she just doesn't do it now, she might never do it at all. And I
Mm.
do think that happens. It sounds like that's what happened to you at 33, that feeling of,
Yeah.
okay, if I don't make a change now, when am I going to do it? And that's why I
Yeah.
think the 30s are so such an amazing decade,
Mm.
because you get to do all this big changes and own them.
For sure, for sure. And that sounds like the impetus of how turning 30, the platform, the coach, all of that work began. How did it come about? What made you go from this is what I'm experiencing to let me create a space for other people who might be experiencing the same thing?
So I talked before about how when I was 29, 30, I started going through this turning 30 crisis. And, crisis is a very dramatic word, but I just started to really, like I said, dive into myself and really look at, I think at the time I was single. I wasn't necessarily really looking for a deep relationship at the time, but I wasn't enjoying being single. I wasn't very consciously dating. I was living
Mhm.
from paycheck to paycheck. I think more than anything, probably my health wasn't very good. Like I was very just not really into like healthy things, and I drank a lot, and I was in a little bit of a party girl era. And I think it was my 29th birthday when I was just like, okay, I'm 30 next year. I really need to sort this out. And that was when I obviously opened up that box and did therapy and career coaching. And that was when it led me to finding coaching. And I started life coaching. And actually, first the first niche that I was coaching on was careers, because I, of course, had this long journey. My career from being a lawyer after I'd quit, I'd had a few years of kind of going around the houses, trying all different things, and nothing really stuck. And so when I found coaching, I was so passionate about it. I thought, I really want to help women leave law. I really want to help women. Actually, it wasn't even just women. I really want to help people find their career.
Mhm.
And then I started noticing a pattern. And the pattern was always, I'm coming up to my 30th birthday, or I've just turned 30, or even I'm coming up to my 40th birthday, because I did coach a few people who are around the 40 mark. And I realized that there's this huge pressure of a big round birthday. And one day I just thought, you know what? Why don't I focus on helping women who are stressed about turning 30?
Mhm.
And it was again more about career stuff, but I just loved it. Something about it just felt really like a calling. And I don't know why I was so audacious, because I was 31 at the time. And who did I think I was to be able to guide women who were, already 30 something? But it just felt like I was the person to do this. And I remember did a bit of market research, and I reached out to some friends. I think I did a post on Facebook, and I did a couple of interviews for
Yeah.
market research, and everyone said the same thing. Like, yes, absolutely. I feel like I'm really left behind when I'm think about where I'm supposed to be by now. And it all just snowballed from there. And I remember changing my bio on Instagram, and then I think I'd like struggled to get 400 or 500 followers over a whole year of doing the career stuff. And then I think it was like in the space of a few months, I already got 1,000 followers, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, this is a thing. People want to hear about this. And it was from there that the message just kept going and kept going. And for many
Mhm.
years, I was focusing on all different areas of turning 30, but it's only actually been for the past 3 years that I've been very much focused on relationships, on women who feel left behind when it comes to love. And I think now we're very specifically focusing on women who are looking for relationships who are probably 33 plus, around that
Mhm.
35 panic mark. It's
Yeah.
something I feel very strongly about. We can dive
I
into
love
that
that.
if you want.
Yes, I love that. And I think that's important because that I feel like when you get into your early, when you're in your early 30s, 30, 31, you're like, okay, cool, like feels interesting here. But then when you start to get into the mid, it's like, okay, I'm really in it. Like I'm really in it.
Yeah.
Um, so in terms of your own love story, could you walk us through that? Like how did you meet your person? Like how did that all unfold?
When somebody asks me about my love story, I'm like, how many podcast episodes should we do about my love life? I could be here all day, many different episodes. So I'll try to be as brief as possible. And I'm not very good at keeping things succinct, but we'll try my best.
There we
I
go.
came out on my 33rd birthday, the week I turned 33. I came out of what I can say was a very mismatched, toxic, bordering on emotional abusive relationship with somebody that I had been with for 4 years. We were engaged, but it wasn't public at the time. And it took a lot for me to get out of that relationship because I was so afraid of being single at 33. And now I can look
Mhm.
back and say, what? It was so young, single at 33. What was I thinking? But at that time, it was sheer dread of having to date again, having to start, from square one. And I'm really saying that I obviously wasn't from square one,
Yeah.
but it was very much this fear of being alone, fear of dating, fear of being single. I want to be a
Mhm.
mother. I'm turning
Yeah.
35 in a couple of years. I'm never. And so that was, I guess, where my love story started. And then the real love story of my life was the 2 years that followed, where I went on the deepest journey into myself, being single at 33, 34, 35. It was just incredible. I did amazing things. I moved in alone for the first time without roommates and
Mhm.
just absolutely loved it. I went on a solo. It was a long trip. I went to live in Costa Rica for 5 years, 5 months. And
Wow.
that was over the pandemic, over the lockdowns. I just really found incredible friends. I found incredible examples of women from all over the world who had had kids much later, well into their 40s. And like just the whole experience of those 2 years was me just really coming back to myself after this awful relationship. Having
Yeah.
said that, and I also, sorry, went on a whole fertility journey and I decided to freeze my eggs at the age of 35.
Okay.
I think there's two narratives that were running during this time. It was, I'm so empowered, I'm single, I'm loving my life, I'm doing all these amazing things. And there was also the other narrative of, I'm turning 35, I want to be a mum. I don't
Mhm.
really believe in the fertility cliff, but in somewhere along the way, it's been socialized to me to fear this age. And one
Yeah.
of my best friends, she got married and had a baby very quickly around this time when I was still single, and it was a very difficult time for me in the run up to that birthday. And that's, I would say, part A of my love journey. And part
Yeah.
B was where I met my partner, where my partner, my husband, we were actually friends before. And we'd known each other for quite a few years and we worked
Yeah.
together. That's how we met, but we didn't really interact. And when I went on the trip to Costa Rica, he actually sublet my apartment through
Oh,
Facebook because I'd done
okay.
a post. So that was
Yeah.
how I would say we connected and we knew each other before and we became friends and he loved my dog and he used to walk her and look after her sometimes. And like we just had a really, really nice relationship. But I was
Mhm.
so focused on all of the emotionally unavailable men that were there at this time that I didn't see that this great person was in
Yeah.
front of me. And eventually, after a couple of years, and when we say we were friends, we were not best friends at all. We were just in touch and we used to meet for coffees and we used to hang out here and there and he would reply to my Instagram stories. I always joke he was my biggest fan on Instagram. And yeah, eventually our friendship just kind of like kept going and kept going. And then it was
Mhm.
actually my therapist who had brought up to me that I had this great person in front of me who was very healthy, emotionally available man who was in my life. And I just had to really go deep with myself as to why it was so hard for me to let somebody in who was potentially a future person, a future life partner. And I think a lot of it was this armor that I had put up, and a lot of also thinking that love would look a certain way, that it would be fireworks from the beginning, that it would be Hollywood movie love, Disney. And it wasn't because this was a friend. So there was definitely a lot of limiting beliefs and stories that I had to break through in order to give it a chance. But as soon as I did, we've been together since. So it's definitely not how I thought love would arrive, but
Mm.
it's been an incredible journey. And yeah, we've been together for just over 3 years, and
Yeah.
we already have a son who's about to turn 2. To give an idea of
Oh,
how quickly
love
things
that.
moved for us.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's crazy to think
I
how it
love
all ended up.
I absolutely love that. Um, and wow. And did you meet him in Did has he moved to Thailand as a result of
Yeah,
you? Like
yeah.
how did
No,
that
no, we were living before in Tel Aviv, so he's Israeli,
got
so
you?
we met there, and then
Right.
we moved to Thailand quite soon after we
Okay.
met.
Okay. Wow. That is actually really affirming because I think at this age and stage, it's also really important not to constantly be looking for the new shiny guy. When actually, is there someone that's a little bit closer to you that has the qualities that you're looking for? And I think it does take that, like somebody else unlocking that part of your brain. I've had that a few times in that, like, people are like, "Can this is a really good guy? Like, I don't understand what's going on," and I'm like, "Hmm, didn't think of him."
Well, I think this is because I could talk for hours on this. We're
Yeah,
all looking for sparks and butterflies, and we know we've probably all seen the reels and heard the podcast episodes saying that the slow burn is the way to go and you should look for these different qualities, and it's obviously what I'm talking about all the time in my content. But no, I think when it even somebody who speaks about this, when it was right in front of my face, because I
yeah,
didn't feel that instant, oh my goodness, I'm supposed to be with you. And all of my ex-boyfriends, and I've been a serial monogamist with periods of being single my whole life. I had a few-year relationship, then a few years single, then a few-year relationship, then a few years single. Then, this is how it's been.
yeah,
And I'll be honest, every relationship I had before my partner, Ellie, it was that feeling of walking into the room and like magnetized to the person. And
yeah,
maybe it was like an immaturity thing as well, that feeling of
yeah,
he's going to be my partner. And then he became my partner. And with Ellie, I didn't have that. So I already made up this story that he wasn't going to be a partner because I didn't feel that way. And that was
yeah,
the big thing for me, was to really understand that sparks can come with time,
yeah.
and the feeling of safety and security can often feel like boring if you're somebody who needs drama or has been brought up
Got
in
you.
an
Yeah, yeah,
in a volatile
right.
environment. And for me, all of my relationships had been a bit, you know, not secure, and with men who were probably more avoidant, and Ellie's very securely attached. So
Mhm.
it felt very weird to me to just be with somebody who I could have an open conversation with, who I could even speak to about the fact, okay, I'm already 35. If we're going to be together at some point in the nearish future, I would like to start a family. I couldn't imagine
Mhm.
saying that to anyone else. Even my boyfriend of 4 years, we had this whole taboo around timelines and when we were going to take those next steps. So all of a sudden, I had this person in front of me who I could speak so openly to. So I just labeled him as not for me. And I
Right.
think we do that and we don't
Yeah.
realize. And I know it's a unique story. And I think when we hear these love stories, it's really easy to think, oh, well, it's easy for her. She met her person, or, that it wouldn't happen to me. And you know what?
Yeah.
It might not. It might happen in a completely different way. But I
Yeah.
love to teach just to
Yeah.
stay open to the fact that even if you go on that first date and you don't feel that initial, you are mine, I need you, it's not a bad thing. Go again, keep going until there's a reason not to.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Keep going until there's a reason not to. And I think that's good advice for life as well, outside of just love. I had another thought actually. Having moved to Thailand, out of curiosity, what is the healthcare like there? We're just moving the conversation ever so slightly. What's the healthcare been like?
Well, we've only been here for 1 year, and so touching wood, haven't had so much experience of it as of yet. But it's the privatized system here as an expat. So we have expat insurance. So
Right.
there's really nice hospitals, private hospitals here,
Yeah.
and you just get everything back on insurance. It depends what kind of insurance you get. If you have travel
Mhm.
insurance and you come here, it's different. I
Yeah.
could do
Yeah.
checkups. So, for example, I had a lump, so I went to do a mammogram. Everything was clear, but it was
Great.
crazy because I know, for example, on the NHS, you would be waiting for months to have that appointment. Whereas for me, I had it and I'd booked an appointment the next day to just go to this hospital and already get it checked out. And it wasn't very expensive. So, yes, very privileged to obviously be able to have expat privileges here.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's something because we moved here with a 9-month-old baby. It was
Hmm.
something that was a non-negotiable for us to live somewhere we could have access
Hmm.
to very good healthcare.
Yeah, and it's also in Thailand. I've not been. I'm like gagging to go. I imagine it's just like a healthier lifestyle and a healthier way of living by virtue of just having access to vitamin D every single day, being close to water, fresh produce, coupled with private health insurance. It just sounds like just the ideal match.
Yeah, it's definitely for me. I'm just always somebody who needs to be living near a beach, by the sea. It's about to be the sunset here when we get off the call. I will be going to a date with my son to watch sunset.
Oh,
So yeah, it's just the way that I've chosen to live, and I know not everybody would be able to live so far away from their family because obviously that's the flip side of it is the compromise of being so far away and not being able to visit very often. But it's just I feel like my soul is supposed to be in warm weather in tropical
yeah,
country and
yeah.
away. And we decided to come for many reasons. And one of those was that we just saw the vision and the values that we have, like as a
Mhm.
family, as a couple.
Yeah.
We just couldn't have that without going far and doing something a bit alternative.
And I think it's that compromise of the and going back to the comfort zone piece as well. Like, which are you actually comfortable? This is what you want your life to look like. Knowing what you know now, moving back to relationships, what would you tell women in their 30s looking for love in 2026?
I have all the cliches that I could say about don't give up hope and keep going and keep dating and all of those things. But I think what I actually want to say is date differently. Date differently this year. Dating is just different now in 2026. And I know people
Mhm.
are exhausted and the apps have got a bad name. And I think that I would empower, or I want to empower, it's something very important in my message for women to just not settle, no more breadcrumbs. If somebody isn't going to step up and treat you in the way that you want, don't just keep seeing them because you've not got anything else and you think, oh, I just want to really get to know your values. So really understand what are you looking for and what do I want in a partner. I have a free
Yeah.
workbook for anyone who, if they would like to figure out what their values are when it comes to looking for love. So I can definitely
Mhm.
give that to your
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
audience.
That would be great.
And yeah, how else do you date differently? You just don't shy away from actually knowing what you want. And that's not to say going on first dates and saying at the start, this is a
Yeah.
list of everything, not like that. But when it comes to those conversations, and I'm saying this from a place of experience because when I
Mhm.
was even in my early 30s, when I was with this with my ex, and even when I was dating before him, I wouldn't have said, okay, this is the truth about what I'm looking for. I would like to live a life like this, or I would you know, I want to have children in the next however many years. I would never say that because I was so scared to scare the person away. And
Mhm.
I think that we need to be holding men up to higher standards now. And the way that we can do that is to not take so much shit. But at the same time, we need to be open. So I hope that my story can help with a little bit what I mean by openness, but really looking at ourselves and seeing, okay, how am I acting on the date? Is there maybe something that I'm bringing? Is there maybe some story there that I'm bringing along with me about
Yeah.
running out of
Yeah.
time or there's so many different stories we can show up, but yes, I think this is the year that women should be dating more consciously, more intentionally, and yeah, just really holding ourselves up to a higher standard.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And that links to my final thought in that life often manifests itself by the stories we tell ourselves. So if you're to finish the sentence, the story I'm telling myself about life and love right now is.
The story I'm telling myself about life and love right now is that I get to live the way that I choose to live and I get to own that. And I'm saying that from a having been on a long journey with owning all the ways that I've got to the place that I
Yeah.
have, and
Yeah.
being single when I was 35 and all my friends were doing one thing, and moving to Thailand away from everything that I knew, just
Mhm.
really owning that piece of you get to, or I get to live this life in the way that I choose and not the way that people expect me to.
I love it. This has been such a fruitful conversation. I cannot wait to even listen back and listen to all the gems that you've dropped. please plug everything, where people can find you, how people can engage with you, how people can be part of your coaching, all the things.
Thank you so much. I've also loved it. And if you want to find me, then the place I hang out the most is Instagram. So you can follow me at Turning 30 Coach. The 30 are the numbers 30. I also have a coaching community. So it's a monthly subscription for the Turning community. So the Turning community is a place where it's specifically designed for single women in their 30s. And what we're doing inside is coming together to thrive during the single chapter. So, like how all the things I've been speaking about in that episode, turning the volume up on you. We're really encouraging, living this chapter without waiting, getting out of the waiting room at the same time as looking for a relationship. So we say that in terms of the general themes of the community with the guest speakers that I bring in with the coaching and everything, is that most of the women inside are currently dating or would like to be dating at some point soon, or maybe they're getting over a breakup or just coming out of a relationship, or they've been single for a while, whatever it is. But that's this safe space for you if you're in your 30s and you're looking for love right now. I also have a podcast, the Turning 30 podcast, and I would say that's the main ways to interact with me for now. But obviously, if you come into my Instagram community, then you will see all the different things that I offer and all the different ways that you can dive into my content.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much for joining Womenstrual The Podcast. Guys, as usual, please like, subscribe, share. This has been a great episode, and I'll see you on the next one. Love you. Bye.